only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain while I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Hey, really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain while I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world.
And welcome into the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. My name is Bradley Stalder. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. If you like the content and you're new to the show, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button on the YouTube channel. If you're on Twitch, also make sure you're going over to YouTube and subscribing there too. That's what helps. But you can also hit the subscribe on Twitch. I just know that some of the Twitch users like to watch on Twitch, so good on you. I do broadcast there. Occasionally I'll do that on Facebook too, but the primary place I'm trying to get to is YouTube. So thank you everyone from YouTube for tuning in so far. Lots of fun. We're making sure we're getting in our top start sit questions in for the day. It's going to be a pretty crazy Week 14, lots of players already ruled out, and a couple players we're getting news on. If I have to pause in the middle and because we're getting news from Adam Schefter, some Shefty bombs, so be it. Appreciate all of you tuning in. Serendipity Trick Shots from YouTube. What's up, man? What's up, Serendipity Trick Shots? A reg on the show. Thanks for popping in. Des Morris, thanks for tuning in again. Appreciate you jumping in and loving the show. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Make sure you're throwing in your start sit questions, strategy advice. I'll do my best to answer all of your questions in the chat. Put them in there. Make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button. Oh, Aquinas, yo, how is it going, man? I was worried I wouldn't be able to hop on live stream tonight. My son was not feeling well. He's been wheezy the last few days, and my wife has been a trooper taking him during some of the night shifts, and so she's needs a break. So I was taking him for a while, for a few hours there, and wasn't sure if I was going to be able to hop on. So I'm glad I was, am able to do this tonight for you guys, for the community, for everybody. So yeah, he's doing a little bit better. And, we're getting going on this Week 14 live stream. Make sure you're putting your start sit questions into the stream, comments, everything. Appreciate all of you. Des, with the first question of the day, would you play any Texans wide receiver for value in DFS? If not, who do you recommend for value at wide receiver this week? Yeah, it's pretty ugly in Houston. For those who are unaware, Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins both ruled out here. So let me see. I just did something crazy with my settings. This is not what I anticipated. Okay, we're going to Control F, and we're going to find Chris Moore. Okay, there are a lot of Moores, by the way. There's DJ Moore, Elijah Moore, Sky Moore, and then ruled out for this game, Rondell Moore. But Chris Moore is the highest Fantasy Pros expert consensus wide receiver for the Texans. He's consensus wide receiver 50 for the week. Let me pull up his DFS data here just so I can speak to it, but I'm not excited about Chris Moore. Like, it feels gross, honestly, that we have to talk about the third string wide receiver for the Houston Texans. But here we are, Chris Moore. Getting the data pulled up here. Why is it Chris Moore? Yeah, so former 4th round pick, 2016, had some speed, had some burst. So he was a decent profile out of Cincinnati. He's 29 years old. And Chris Moore is the wide receiver 12 right now on DraftKings in projected rostership per Roto Grinders. He's 3,400, almost 10% rostered. FanDuel, he's a little bit better at 5.9% projected rostership, 5,300. He's priced up there, priced pretty low, but I wouldn't be surprised if that rostership bumps up just a little bit. For Chris Moore, he's played 11 games. He's 27 receptions for 314 receiving yards on the season. He's wide receiver 81 in fantasy points per game. And looking some of the spike weeks, if you want to talk about Chris Moore, he did finish as the wide receiver 18 back in week 9 when he played 70% of snaps. It was his season high. He caught 4 passes and a touchdown, had 43 receiving yards. I mean, he's finished with 4 games with at least 40 receiving yards. So, I mean, if you're in really, really desperate straits, I don't know if I would view him as a DFS value because that 10% rostership is pretty high for a player who, you know, he might be getting into that chalkiness. But, I mean, if we're digging even deeper into the wide receivers for Houston, it's pretty ugly. Let's look for Houston. Yeah, Chris Moore, and then Philip Dorsett is the next wide receiver that falls into the Fantasy Pros consensus. He's wide receiver 64 in consensus. Yeah, I think it's just too deep for you to be digging into these Houston Texans. The Dallas Cowboys are a really good defense. Okay. They're one of the top coverage graded in PFF, and their pressure rates are very high. They get to the quarterback, and Davis Mills is back there, but I don't know if that's really going to make much of a difference, honestly. So yeah, Des, I'm not really looking at like a value from that point. Let me look up Elijah. Speaking of Moores, though, we talk about values at the wide receiver position. Elijah Moore is extremely interesting for me as a value. He's 3,500 on DraftKings. His expected projected rostership 0.8%, wide receiver 52. So he's priced down in what we expect to be a pretty high, 42.5 in game total points is high for this week. Like, some of the games are going to be 37 points or even lower. I know that it's 16, 17 implied points for the New York Jets, but I think Elijah Moore is an interesting trending up value. We've seen him go from 17% snap share, 45, 54. He did get 34.5% snap share in week 12, but he torched Jalen Jones out of the slot, 2 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. And then last week played, 6. So I think that, Elijah Moore is an interesting, really deep cut at 3,500. So if you're looking at a different Moore, let's go Elijah Moore this week out of the New York Jets. His talent level is tremendous. 2nd round pick out of Ole Miss. He was the equivalent of Christian Watson. If we're looking at what, wide receivers, what wide receiver was drafted 34th overall, Christian Watson to Elijah Moore. His player profiler comp, Tyler Lockett, just tremendous speed for Elijah Moore. And if he's going to play out of the slot, that's going to be a value. Like the video, folks. Yeah, not just like the video, also hit that red subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. The likes do help trending the video, but overall helping the channel too. Make sure you're subscribing there. Jose, we meet again. Good evening. Good evening, Jose. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jose. So thanks for tuning in. And for those who are unaware, I just tweeted out a few hours ago that Did It is expanding in the fantasy football space. And so it's me and a few other fantasy analysts on the Did It app, where if you want fantasy advice one-on-one, like you'll pay for it, but I'm available to video chat one-on-one to talk about start sits, players, and based on the length, it's kind of like a cab ride. Like, how long you spend is how much you spend. So if you want to check out the Did It app, you can download it. You can check out my tweets on on Twitter at FFStalder. You can find it there. So if you want to set up specific things, you can request, hey, I want to talk with you, and we'll see when I get online to be able to chat. So Jose was able to do that tonight. Hopefully very satisfied customer. It seems that way since you're hopping on the YouTube chat as well. So appreciate you, Jose, getting in on the Did It app. Okay. We answered some start sits there. And Dez, I hope baby feels better. God bless him. Thank you, Dez. Appreciate you. Hopefully he does. You know, he's been taking some meds, so hopefully he'll be able to feel better. But let's get into more of the start sits. Serendipity Trick Shots asked, is Travis Homer a possible flex? I have DJ Moore and Zay Jones, and the bye weeks are killing me. Yes. So this is just updated a couple minutes ago. We got word from Jeremy Fowler that the Seattle Seahawks are expected to sit Kenneth Walker. He is not expected to play per Jeremy Fowler. This was 35 minutes ago due to the foot injury. He's labeled as a game time decision. This is Jeremy Fowler, but it is considered a long shot barring any surprises. The Seahawks hope to have him for Thursday Night Football against the 49ers. So hopefully you are getting Travis Homer off of your waiver wire, or you already got him. Should you start Travis Homer? That was a big question that I answered on the previous live stream, and I don't think my opinion has really changed. Travis Homer, in the 2 games where he had double-digit touches, averaged about 9.5 fantasy points in half PPR. And you're thinking to yourself, well, 9.5, that's not great, but it's also not terrible. And like, if you want a player who's going to get touches, you know that the Seattle backfield is going to give some touches, but he averaged 5.5 receptions. So you could see like Wayne Gallman and Tony Jones handling carries, and then Travis Homer handling the majority of pass down work, which is interesting. In full PPR, like you could see Travis Homer getting into that flex consideration. But right now, Travis Homer is my running back 30 in half PPR. Like, you're still starting Kareem Hunt over Travis Homer. You're still starting James Cook over Travis Homer. You're starting Devin Singletary over Travis Homer. You're starting Zonovan Knight over Travis Homer. Latavius Murray over Travis Homer. I think that's the right spot. But you're starting Travis Homer over Gus Edwards. You know, you're starting him over Ty Johnson. You're starting him over Kenneth Gainwell, right? DJ Dallas not expected to play in this game. You're starting Travis Homer over Jaylen Warren, right? So I think that Travis Homer is at that like teardrop spot of, you know, I've trusted Kareem Hunt. I've trusted, you know, the Raheem Mosterts of the world. Like I'm starting Raheem Mostert over Travis Homer just with the upside possibility that Raheem Mostert has. So that's what I'm looking at for Travis Homer. DJ Moore, you know, we're getting Sam Darnold, and looking what DJ Moore did the last time that we got Sam Darnold. DJ Moore is the consensus wide receiver 22, and getting Seattle is a positive matchup. He's going to move around the formation, so I'm not worried about a shadowing purpose. And Sam Darnold last time, 4 for 103 and a touchdown to DJ Moore. Moore finished as the wide receiver 9. Moore has been more of a Jekyll Hyde over the last 6 games, right? He finished as a top 9 wide receiver 3 of the last 6, but also finished as wide receiver 50 in the other 3 games. So DJ Moore is a higher upside play than Travis Homer for sure. And then Zay Jones also has a really positive matchup in this game. But I do have DJ Moore over both of Travis Homer and Zay Jones. I get that bye weeks are killing you, but I think at this point you got to go with DJ Moore over Zay Jones over Travis Homer. Isaac Diaz from YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. This is a tougher one. Are we going to go with J.K. Dobbins or Okonkwo at the flex, full PPR, 16-team league? If you were to say, well, it's full PPR and tight end premium, I would go Okonkwo. But this is where it gets a little bit more difficult because we had seen J.K. Dobbins right, come back from injury in week number 3 against New England. Now, granted, of course, it was New England, but J.K. Dobbins, seven rushes in his first game back from the ACL injury, 23 rushing yards. I'm not too worried about the rushing yards. He had 2 targets, 2 receptions. So he had 9 touches in that game for 40 yards. He finishes the running back 45. Are you comfortable with getting like 5 to 7 fantasy points, against a tough Pittsburgh defense where Gus Edwards is going to be involved? Gus Edwards was not involved in the week 3 game at New England. It was J.K. Dobbins, but also Tyler Huntley is still there. And Tyler Huntley is going to get some rushes too. So I think J.K. Dobbins, I think I'm still going to go Okonkwo for the flex. This game is going to be one where the Titans are going to have to lean on the likes of Okonkwo, who is an athletic tight end. He plays a lot of snaps in the slot and out wide. The Dobbins play, I'm worried about the conservativeness of the Baltimore Ravens in this first game back from injury. We know that the Ravens are usually pretty conservative with injuries, and they may just ease him back. And that's my concern. Okonkwo outsnapped Austin Hooper. He led the Titans in target share last week. I think that this is we know more of what we're going to get from Okonkwo than we know what we're going to get from Dobbins, which is why I'm leaning that way. Dobbins, I think, is a better talent. I think rest of season Dobbins over Okonkwo, of course, but this is where like the level of trust we have in the coaching staff to have trust in the players, right? That's how I'm viewing it right now. And Dobbins would need like 12 to 15 carries. And I think he'll eventually get to that level, but not in this first week back from the injury. And whereas Okonkwo, we've seen the Tennessee Titans continue to trust him more and more throughout the season and trend the right way. So that's why I'm leaning Okonkwo. I hope that helps, Isaac. Steelers or 49ers DST this weekend. I'll just pull up my DST rankings. I'll give you my top 10 DSTs. Number 10, Philadelphia Eagles. Number 9 are the Niners. Number 8 are the Raiders. 7 are the Steelers. So the Raiders one actually worked out pretty well. The Raiders ended up getting 7 fantasy points on the week, so that wasn't too bad. The Steelers at 7, the Titans at 6, the Seahawks at 5, Buccaneers at 4, the Chiefs at 3, the Bills at 2, and the Dallas Cowboys at 1. So if I'm picking between the Niners and Steelers, I'm going to go with the Steelers. Aquas. All right. Very good. The weather in New York says 60% rain. Do you think I'm on the right track starting Miles Sanders against the Giants? Yeah, I think you're going to be fine starting Miles Sanders against the Giants. Sanders I have right now as my running back 10 in half PPR. His consensus is running back 14, and maybe I do move him down just a little bit, but we've seen some ceiling games from Miles Sanders. We've seen a running back 2 finish against Green Bay. We've seen a running back 8 against Houston. We've seen running back 3 against Jacksonville. And this New York Giants defense can be had, right? Sanders is the running back 17 and averaging 17 touches and 83 rushing yards per game. He's 17 yards after contact. He's 22nd in PFF's elusive rating, 5.9% target share. Doesn't really matter against the Giants because the Giants, they allow the fewest receptions to running backs. So it's going to be a between the tackles type of game for Miles Sanders, who we've seen get the rushing volume, 21 rushes, 17 rushes, 18, 27, 15, 17, 13 on the season. And the Philadelphia Eagles, they will tailor their game plan to the weaknesses of the opposing team. So the Giants, they don't give up a lot of passing work to the running back. So I don't anticipate a lot of targets. We saw Miles Sanders not used a lot last week because the Titans don't give up a lot of rushing efficiency to the running back position, whereas the Giants not really on the radar, like one way or the other on the outlier spectrum when it comes to those types of things. Like I don't have it in any of my notes of this is an outlier defense that you should be concerned about. So I think Sanders is, in that low end running back 1, high end running back 2 range, and where that dust settles, I'll figure out, at the beginning of after I go to church tomorrow. So I take one final look at where has the weather settled, where has the dust settled on a few other players as well. But for right now, I think you're comfortable starting Miles Sanders unless you have like two of the other elites. Like you're starting Chubb, you're starting Ramondre Stevenson, you're starting Tony Pollard, you're starting Eckler and Henry and McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook over Miles Sanders this week, and probably maybe Ezekiel Elliott, maybe DeAndre Swift, maybe Travis Etienne. Those are ones that if I were to change it right now, I probably would move over Miles Sanders. But that's the right range, the right tier range for me. All right, Des, thanks for the advice. Appreciate you. Brixico from YouTube, Josh Palmer, Kenneth Walker, or McKinnon. Oh, man. Well, Kenneth Walker's probably not going to play, so we can X him out right there. Jerick McKinnon, I'm a little worried about his target share because he had the same number of targets last week as Isaiah Pacheco, and this game is not going to be one that really leans into the pass-catching running backs. This is a Denver team who struggles to score points. The Denver Broncos average barely over a touchdown per game. This game is in Denver, where I don't think the Broncos are going to push offensively the Chiefs to score a lot of points. So I think this is an Isaiah Pacheco game. I have Pacheco comfortably as a running back 2, behind Rachaad White, behind Joe Mixon, behind Ezekiel Elliott, but ahead of Jeff Wilson, ahead of Donta Foreman, ahead of Najee Harris, ahead of James Conner in this range. So I think that it's a Pacheco game, not a McKinnon game. And then Josh Palmer, this game could be a slugfest, right? And if you don't have confidence in Mike Williams returning, it's going to be Josh Palmer. Mike Williams has the best, tied for the best matchup on the outside against Crossan, the cornerback from Miami. And Crossan gives up the second highest yards per reception and the third highest quarterback rating against on the outside. So Mike Williams has a plus matchup. If Mike Williams re-aggravates, this could once again be the Josh Palmer game, right? Remember, we fired up Mike Williams the game he came back from his ankle injury. He re-aggravated it during the game, and Josh Palmer went absolutely nuclear. So I think Josh Palmer is the move here regardless, because there's contingency upside, but there's also he's going to get 4 or 5, 6 targets in this game. And Josh Palmer is going to get down the field with a possibility of a touchdown. And this is the highest over under on the week, the Miami versus LA game. So Josh Palmer, I would lean out of these 3. And Pickens, you need 2 of them. Yeah, I think if you're picking 2, you're going Josh Palmer. And man, I feel burned by Pickens. Pickens is a really, really tough matchup this week. So I think I'm going to go Palmer and McKinnon there, Brixico. Best of luck with that. But I could see Pickens having a good game, but I think McKinnon is the better play here. I had Etienne burn me 2 weeks ago and Walker last week, both for losses. Yeah, the injuries got you against top play in my league. I'm so sorry. That really sucks. That's really, really tough. So I feel your frustration. All right. I'm going to pause for a moment. Make sure you're putting your questions in the chat. If I've answered your question or if you like the content, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and continue its growth. Really appreciate you. So hopefully, y'all like it. And if you like it, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button. If you miss out on the live stream too, or if you have further questions after the live stream, feel free to comment on the videos. I do, as those in the community know, I'm really good about getting back to comments and giving you 1 to 3 sentences of my thoughts on a particular player. So you can testimony, you can ask anyone else in the chat, hey, how's Bradley do, in that, but you've got the testimonies, and you can also see the channel has been one of the biggest growing channels in the fantasy space over the last couple months. Since week 5, we've grown from about 50 subscribers to now almost 450 subscribers. So I really appreciate all of you joining into the community. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Appreciate all of you. Let's keep going. C1OS11, Dameon Pierce or Donta Foreman? And this one on the surface seems this is a tough one. It's really not. This is a very, very easy one. C1OS11. I appreciate you asking this question because it's very, very clearly Donta Foreman. Donta Foreman faces a Seattle defense that gives up a lot of fantasy points to the running back position. And this is a close game. In close games, Donta Foreman crushes. He absolutely crushes. Like we see since week 7 against Tampa Bay, he was running back 13. Against Atlanta, he was running back 5. Against Atlanta again, he was running back 9. And against Denver, running back 26. In the 2 blowout games against Cincinnati and Baltimore, running back 42 and 47. This is not going to be a blowout game. This is going to be one of those closer games where Donta Foreman's going to get fed, and you want to be a little bit more bullish on Donta Foreman. Like if you don't trust Jeff Wilson, start Donta Foreman over him. Whereas the complete opposite is the case for Dameon Pierce. Like I warned you about Donta Foreman getting game scripted out of touches. That's what's going to happen in this Dallas Cowboys game. I am really low on Dameon Pierce. He is outside my top 28 of running backs. He's consensus running back 17, and maybe I get burned by this. I don't think I will though, because Dameon Pierce, yes, he had 7 straight games where he was the running back 20 or better. But looking over the last 3 weeks, against Washington, 10 rushes for 8 rushing yards. He finishes the running back 46 that week. He had 3 targets, 2 receptions for 9 receiving yards. Week 12, Miami, 5 rush attempts. That was a blowout. 8 rushing yards, 6 targets, 3 receptions, only 8 receiving yards. He finished as the running back 55 that week. Now, last week against Cleveland, close game. Good matchup against the rushing defense. 18 for 73, 3 for 22 through the air, finishes the running back 21, and he's the running back 17 this week against Dallas. Make that make sense. I know it's bipocalypse, but come on, people. This is a game where the Dallas Cowboys are projected 17-point favorites at home. You don't think that Dameon Pierce is going to get game scripted out of touches? Are you out of your minds? Like you need to be benching Dameon. The floor is so scary. Like, could he fall in the end zone and go like 12 for 50? Maybe. And fall in the end zone. And then it like saves your day. Dameon Pierce would need to save his day. Donta Foreman will make your day. He'll be fine RB2. But I am really out on Dameon Pierce this week. You should be too. It doesn't matter that Davis Mills is back. That's not going to be a significant upgrade over Kyle Allen. You need to be benching Dameon Pierce, starting Donta Foreman over him. And in fact, like, call it a hot take. Start James Cook over Dameon Pierce. Start Raheem Mostert over Dameon Pierce. Start Jamal Williams over Dameon Pierce. Start Zonovan Knight over Dameon Pierce. Start Latavius Murray over Dameon Pierce. That is how out I am on Dameon Pierce for this week against the Cowboys. There's your answer. C1OS11. Appreciate you. And if you like that content, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button. Ruben Payman from YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you, Ruben. Start 2. And we got 4 options here. Davis, I assume it's Gabe Davis, Pirine, Homer, McKenzie. We're not starting Samaje Perine. Joe Mixon projects to get the full workload. And I know there's been a little bit of chatter of, Samaje Perine, he's done so well. Samaje Perine's played. No, it's the Joe Mixon show, okay? Joe Mixon is the consensus running back 10. I have Joe Mixon at 14, so I am a little bit lower, but not like bench him. Okay. Like I have Ezekiel Elliott over Joe Mixon because it's the Houston rush defense, but Joe Mixon gets Cleveland. And the last time that Joe Mixon played Cleveland, he finishes the running back 27, but he had 7 receptions and 9 targets in that game. Cleveland usually gives up a lot of rushing yards. So I don't know exactly what was going on with the Cincinnati Bengals game plan against Cleveland. I think it's a bounce back game. And this is a massive, positive matchup for Joe Mixon. Maybe I need to even swing Joe Mixon on the other side of consensus because we just saw Dameon Pierce, who had really struggled as of late, finish as the top 20 running back, and the Cleveland rushing defense gives up the second most fantasy points to the running back position. So that's where I would go. You're not going with Samaje Perine. I think you're going to go with Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie. And I know Homer is an interesting pickup, but I think the floor is just scarier for Travis Homer. He's my running back 30 for right now. Isaiah McKenzie is in that lower wide receiver 3. I think he's like wide receiver 36 or so for me right now. Let me pull up McKenzie. No, actually, I have him even higher. Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver 29. I have McKenzie over Gabe Davis. I have Gabe Davis at wide receiver 30 because it's a really, really tough matchup. But McKenzie and Gabe Davis, I would have over Travis Homer. That's where I would go. Okay. Isaac, thanks for the analysis. Appreciate the advice. Very helpful. Thanks, Isaac. Hopefully everything falls in your favor for this week. Let's see. Craig Harrison, full PPR and bye weeks have me down to Jameson Williams, I think. My wide receiver 2 in a must win. Should I put in Dortch, Hinton, or Terrace Marshall, or start Jameson and chase the possible upside? Oh man, Craig, I feel you. Oh man, woof. Okay, Jameson Williams, Dortch, Hinton, or Terrace Marshall. Yeah, so let's touch on the Dortch start to begin with, because Dortch missed the previous game with a finger injury, but Rondell Moore has been ruled out for this game. And let's see, Dortch practiced in full on Friday, so it looks like he's going to operate out of the slot. And we've seen Greg Dortch have 3 games finishing as the wide receiver 27 or better in half PPR. In fact, against San Francisco, who's usually a pretty stingy defense, Greg Dortch finished as the wide receiver 12, 9 for 103 on 10 targets. And that is the 3rd time this year where Greg Dortch had at least 9 targets. So I really don't hate putting in Greg Dortch as a, let's see, full PPR option. Marquise Brown was back for the Cardinals in that Week 12 game, but I still think that Kyler Murray is going to be looking to the slot with Zach Ertz, out. Trey McBride doesn't command a target share that's anything significant. So Dortch, I think, is your best bet out of Hinton, Terrace Marshall, or Jameson Williams. I think that the Lions are going to be pretty conservative with getting Jameson Williams back. Right. He only played a couple snaps and only got a couple targets in the last game. And I think they'll ramp it up, but I still don't think he's going to be, a 40% snap share type of wide receiver in this Minnesota game. I would need to see Jameson Williams be 2 straight games of 60+% snaps for me to be putting him in my starting lineup. I know that there's a lot of upside and some nice measurables there. I've been touting Jameson Williams for weeks and weeks. Like, he's got a lot of upside. Fire him up week 17. But that's what I'm targeting for Jameson Williams, is week 17 in your fantasy championships. So fire up your Greg Dortch this week with Rondell Moore officially out. Mike Mars from YouTube, in your opinion, would I be considered safe if I played Dallas defense for the remainder of the season? I also have Tampa as the backup. Well, we know Dallas has a really nice defensive matchup for this week. They obviously get the Houston Texans, but they get Jacksonville, who struggled. They get Philadelphia. That's really tough. But then they get Tennessee, which is really nice. So you're probably going to have to stream against Tennessee, or not against Tennessee, against Philadelphia. And then that week is week 16. Tampa Bay in week 16 gets the Arizona Cardinals. So you're probably going to start the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Dallas Cowboys for that week, given the matchup. So that's how I would do it. So 3 out of the 4 weeks is not bad, Mike Mars 23. What's up, Warrior Loft? Appreciate you tuning in. Start, or should I stash Dontrell Hilliard or J.K. Dobbins? I think the stash here is J.K. Dobbins. Right? I don't think this week, week 14, is going to be J.K. Dobbins week, but in week, 17? Could it be J.K. Dobbins week? Possibly. Week 18, could it be J.K. Dobbins week? possibly. We saw J.K. Dobbins near the end of his rookie year really come on strong. And, Dobbins, he's shown this year, he finishes the running back 10 against Buffalo on only 13 carries. He went 13 for 41. He had 4 receptions for 22 yards, had 2 total touchdowns in that game, 20 fantasy points and half PPR. So I think the last few games, he has a tough matchup this week with Pittsburgh, but then he gets Cleveland, which is a smash matchup, as I talked about earlier in the live stream, against running backs. Atlanta, which is a smash matchup. Pittsburgh again, which is tougher, but he's probably going to be more full go in that game. And then Cincinnati in week 18, which you're probably not playing in your fantasy leagues. So I think the better stash is J.K. Dobbins. Dontrell Hilliard, not so much. C-Crip, hey, Bradley, need a running back flex PPR. Devonta Smith, Mike Williams, Dobbins, Homer, or Leonard Fournette. How bad is the cornerback that's covering both Smith and Williams? Good question. Devonta Smith and Mike Williams have really, really plus matchups. So these are the only 2 players out of the 5 that I'm considering in this, except for the fact that you need a running back. So of Dobbins, Homer, or Leonard Fournette, I'm probably leaning Travis Homer. I am not expecting Leonard Fournette to play. He didn't practice on Friday per the reports that I read. Maybe those have changed and maybe the trends have changed, and maybe we'll get clarity during this live stream of whether Leonard Fournette is expected to play or not, but I'm not expecting him to play. And even if he does play, San Francisco has a 43% run block advantage of their defensive line over Tampa Bay's offensive line. That's projections per PFF. San Francisco also allows the fewest rush yards per game at 56.9, and they allow the fewest fantasy points for running backs in half PPR. So that's a really, really negative matchup for a running back who would be splitting if Leonard Fournette is active. I'm fine with firing up Rachaad White as a running back 2 due to the volume and due to the pass catching. But, I think that it's going to be Travis Homer out of those 3. I think he's the best bet to get workload in full PPR. In the games where Travis Homer gets double-digit touches, he averages 5.5 receptions per game. So in full PPR, how are you going to argue with on an automatic 8 or 9 points out of receptions for your running back and sprinkle in a little bit more rushing for Homer? I think that's fine. So, I don't know what to necessarily expect from J.K. Dobbins, except for what we've seen in the past, which is them tempering the Baltimore Ravens coaching staff tempering his usage his first game back. So if I'm picking a running back, it's going to be Travis Homer. And then if I'm picking a wide receiver, Devonta Smith or Mike Williams, this is a tough one because both of them have really nice matchups. Devonta Smith and Mike Williams both are at a 91% or higher advantage per PFF's wide receiver versus cornerback coverage grades. 50% for reference is average, so 91% for Devonta Smith, 100% for Mike Williams. And when you get to 85% or higher in my book, it's all the same. It's all elite upside. And so the difference between 91 and 100 really doesn't matter for me. So that's not going to sway me one way or the other toward each other. But this game total is really, really interesting for the Chargers versus Miami. I think the only concern I have about Mike Williams versus Devonta Smith is it is his first game coming back from the injury. So I am hedging a little bit that, the Chargers may temper a little bit of the expectations. Williams has jumped to the wide receiver 38 in consensus. I have Mike Williams at wide receiver 24 for the week. Right now, we've seen elite ceilings against plus matchups. Williams was able to torch Seattle, Cleveland, and Kansas City as being at least a top 9 wide receiver in half PPR in those games. But Mike Williams also went out against Kansas City after in his second matchup in week 11, 1 reception for 11 yards with that re-aggravation. So I think I'm starting Devonta Smith because we know what we're going to get out of Devonta Smith, and that is a lot of volume. 5 of the last 6 games for Devonta Smith, at least 8 targets. Okay, and he's finished as the wide receiver 29 or better in 3 of those last three of those last six, actually 3 of the last 4 games, he's finished as a wide receiver 29 or better. Double-digit fantasy points in half PPR, 3 of the last 4 games. So against the Giants, I'm not worried about the Giants being a tough matchup. Individually, Devonta Smith is projected to torch. So give me Devonta Smith slightly over Mike Williams. Like, does Mike Williams have a higher ceiling? I think that's debatable. Like, Devonta Smith has finished as the wide receiver 1, 10, and 15 as his three highest ceiling games, whereas Mike Williams this year, yes, in fewer games, but Mike Williams has had a finish as the wide receiver 9, the wide receiver 8, and the wide receiver 6. So I think that you're still getting access to elite ceiling with Devonta Smith. You've got a plus matchup. You know what you're going to get. So I'm leaning Devonta Smith over Mike Williams. And then if you need to pick a running back, Homer is my pick there. Chris Mills, Deebo Samuel, Amari Cooper, or Zay Jones. Pick one. Yeah. Amari Cooper is dealing with a hip injury, so he's questionable for the Cincinnati game. I wouldn't be surprised if he is ruled inactive. He did not participate at all on Friday. We haven't heard anything. He has a chance to play there. That's the most updated notes. We are watching this closely. Even so, right, the secondary for the Cincinnati Bengals gives up, I think, like the third fewest or second fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Let me pull that up just to verify. But I think that the secondary for the Bengals, they're really tough. And I know that Amari Cooper had a really good game last time against the Cleveland Browns. I think that's the matchup, right? Why am I blanking here? Yes. The against the Cincinnati, the Cincinnati did give up a lot of fantasy points to Amari Cooper. In fact, last time Amari Cooper went 5 for 131 and a touchdown, but they, outside of that, have been pretty stingy when it comes to limiting wide receivers. Yeah, the Bengals, just a correction, 5th in fantasy points allowed on the season. They give up the fewest receptions to wide receivers. So, I think you're fading Amari Cooper this week, even if he plays. I know he did well last time, but this game is in Cincinnati. Deebo Samuel is my wide receiver 21 on the week. He's consensus wide receiver 21. That's fine. Zay Jones, I don't think it gets up high enough. Zay Jones officially questionable, even though this is a really plus matchup. He's a consensus wide receiver 32. So I think you're going Deebo Samuel here. I think you're going Deebo Samuel because even if they say, oh yeah, Amari Cooper is good to go, the not practicing on Friday is a real red flag for me, especially if he's trending the wrong way and dealing with a new injury against a secondary that's real tough. So give me Deebo Samuel, even with the new quarterback, Brock Purdy. All right. Liam De La Isla. Appreciate you jumping in from YouTube. Okay. Yeah, let's go. Judy or Jameson Williams? You're going with Jerry Judy here. You're going with Jerry Judy. Judy is my wide receiver 31 right now. He's wide receiver 25, so I think I'm going to have to bump him up. I don't think I fully updated the rankings since Cortland Sutton has been out, but this is clearly over Jameson Williams. I'm not confident that Williams gets to a 50% snap share for this game, so Judy is the play here. He has an 18.4% target share. He finished as the wide receiver 40 last week. I don't think that Jameson Williams can quite get there for 65. And Judy had, 2 straight top 20 finishes before his bye week in week 9, 13 and 15 fantasy points. And then he leaves the week 10 game against Tennessee with the ankle injury. So, and misses the week 11 and week 12 games. I'm interested in Jerry Judy as a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 for this week. Travis Homer or Najee Harris? Yeah, so I think this is a one where we just don't get cute. I think this is still Najee Harris over Travis Homer. I have Najee Harris as my running back 19. He's consensus running back 18. He's expected to go He practiced in full on Fridays, cleared to play against the Ravens, so I'm not concerned about that on Najee Harris's front. Najee Harris has finished as the running back 29 or better each of the last 4 games. So I'm going with Najee Harris against Baltimore. I know that Baltimore is a pretty tough defense, but you would expect that Najee Harris get the rushing work. In fact, 3 of the last 4 games, Najee Harris at least 17 carries. So I am firing up Najee Harris. I'm not getting cued, not going to bench Najee Harris over Travis Homer. Seacrip needs a streaming defense. Let's talk DSTs for a second or revisit that. The Titans are my DST 6. The Cardinals are my DST 14. The Pittsburgh Steelers are my DST 7. And the Seahawks are my DST 5. So I would go with the Seahawks at 5. Okay. KJ Frederick. Is Fournette and Barkley playing this week? Any news? Okay. So Fournette and Barkley are still officially questionable. We've not gotten the Shefty bomb regarding Fournette or Barkley quite yet. Officially listed as questionable. Barkley was limited in practice on Thursday and Friday. Brian Dable told reporters on Friday that Saquon's status is in doubt because of his neck injury. He was a limited practice. I think the play here is to pick up Matt Breida if he is still on your waiver wire, just in case. Just in case, literally like in the next hour, we get the Shefty bomb that says, out of precaution, Saquon Barkley is not going to play in this game. So pay attention to the news. That's what I would say is Fournette, is Barkley playing. Now, Fournette, let me pull up the news for him. As I mentioned, this is a bad matchup for Fournette anyways. He was added to the injury report, was limited on Thursday. I don't think he practiced on Friday per the reports that I read. And this is a new injury for him, the foot injury. You don't like to see injuries added later on in the week. So we're monitoring this. We don't have definitive updates. That's what I would say over the 2 running backs you mentioned here. So keep your ears to the news outlets. If I get news in the morning, maybe I'll make a video about it and talk about, the specific upside of Matt Breida, but maybe we'll talk about that later. We'll see if there are any, let's see if we get more news. Mike Mars, if you had to guess, what would you consider a reasonable floor and ceiling for Travis Homer in this week's matchup, especially now that Walker is officially doubtful? I think he's doubtful, not expected to play, but it's not been officially official yet. Jeremy Fowler did report not expected to play, but that he's as good as being ruled out for all of our purposes. I think that's how we need to operate, at least, is that Kenneth Walker is out. What is a reasonable floor and ceiling for Travis Homer? I think when talking about Travis Homer, we need to look at some of the past performances that Homer has had when given double-digit touches. So back in 2019, when Homer had 15 touches, he finished with 11.7 fantasy points. When he had 11 touches in 2019, he finished with 7 fantasy points. Travis Homer in 2020, there weren't any games where he had 10 touches, but he had one game where he had 9 touches, and that he finished with 9 fantasy points there, 9.5 fantasy points. There weren't any games in 2021 where he had double-digit touches, but he did have one where he had 7 touches, and he finished with 18 fantasy points in that game because that was the game where he had the rushing touchdown on the fake punt. So that was interesting. We know that Travis Homer has a lot of speed. So I think you're looking at like a floor of 7 fantasy points and a ceiling of, let's say, like 13. So 7 to 13, if we're looking at what 7 to 13 fantasy points would be, in like leaderboard for week 13. Okay. Stats, week 13, leaders, like 13 fantasy points last week would put you at like running back 16. and then 7 fantasy points would put you at like running back 36. So a mid running back 2 would be his ceiling, and a low end running back 3 would just be his floor. And I think that that's a fair assumption, or a fair way to gauge where Travis Homer would be. So 7 to 13 fantasy points is kind of the range where I would expect Travis Homer to be. If he falls outside of that, one way or the other is probably going to be either usage or he fell in the end zone multiple times. That's what we would say. Okay. Would you rather start Tua or Herbert? Well, let's pull up the quarterback rankings. I have Tua at 5. I have Justin Herbert at 4. Both of them back to back in the rankings. They're in the same game, so we expect that this is a high scoring game. Justin Herbert, because he has Mike Williams back, and Tua Tagovailoa is dealing with the Jalen Waddle injury. I think that is a pretty significant one. Jalen Waddle left the game last week with a fibula injury, a leg injury. The x-rays were negative from what I could tell. He had 1 reception for 9 yards on 5 targets. He did return to the game. But I wonder, if that injury does impact Jalen Waddle. So I wonder if I can even move down Jalen Waddle. And I think that's going to be the crux of who does better in this game. Is it going to be Mike Williams full go or not? Is it going to be Jalen Waddle for full go or not? So if I'm picking, I think that Mike Williams is a full go, and I think Jalen Waddle is going to be limited a little bit. So let's go with Herbert over Tua Tagovailoa in this matchup. And also Tua dealing with the ankle injury. I don't know how much it has actually impacted him, but that's why I'm also going with Herbert too. So I think there's just a few reasons why I'll go with Herbert as my quarterback 4 this week over Tua, over Josh Allen. Josh Allen is my quarterback 6 this week. I mean, it's a little spicy, but whatever. So there you go. DJ Chark, Isaiah McKenzie, or Garrett Wilson. It's Garrett Wilson. You're firing up Garrett Wilson against the Buffalo Bills. And I know that Garrett Wilson last time against the Bills went 8 for 92. So that's pretty good. He finished as the wide receiver 14 in that game, 9 targets. Mike White's going to get him the ball. I don't care about the weather. It's fine. Yes, you're firing up Garrett Wilson. You're not going to get cute here. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Do I like DJ Moore this week against the Seahawks? I think is a viable wide receiver 2. And I'm hoping that Sam Darnold will continue to look his way and look for him down the field. Right now, DJ Moore is my wide receiver 21. He's the consensus wide receiver 22 on the week. Last time that Moore played, he had a 31.5% target share, which turned into 103 receiving yards. Moore finished as the wide receiver 9.5 PPR that week. So, I think that DJ Moore is going to be a solid wide receiver 2 for you in this week. Okay. Let's see. Pierce, Jamal, or Homer? Yeah, I think I'm still going Jamal Williams, even though, I'm a little lower than consensus on Jamal Williams, or at least I thought I was. Right now, Jamal Williams is my running back 23. He's the consensus running back 20 on the week. So I am a little bit lower than the consensus. Jamal Williams has finished as the running back 26 or worse each of the last 2 weeks. And we've seen his snaps trend down from week 11 to 12 to 13. Minnesota's rushing defense gives up less than 82 rushing yards per game to the running back position. They give up less than 4 yards per carry to running backs, and they are the second best rush defense grade per PFF. So Jamal Williams, I'm fading, and DeAndre Swift I have as a top 12 running back this week due to the pass catching. So that's where I would go. Jamal Williams over Pierce and Homer. I have Pierce 1 spot above Homer. I'll go Homer over Najee. That's fair. If you think that he's going to get, more involved, I just don't have the exceptional confidence that Travis Homer is going to get like 15 touches. Like, I think Pete Carroll will want to give Tony Jones or Wayne Gallman, or even Godwin Igwebuike was signed. And we saw Godwin Igwebuike have like a couple interesting games last year for Detroit. I don't know. Look, if you really want to put all chips in on Travis Homer, that's fine. I just see his floor as like running back 36 to 40, but his ceiling is more of like a running back 15-ish. So I'm still going to Najee Harris with the better chance of Najee falling into the end zone. Should I start Donta Foreman over Homer? Yes. I'm not worried about Foreman getting game scripted out. Let me pull up the Foreman. I'm not worried about the Panthers getting blown out here. There's only a 4-point differential. There's a 44.5 game point implied total between the Panthers and the Seahawks, and the Panthers are only 4-point dogs. So I think this is going to be a closer game. I'm not worried about being game scripted out for Foreman. So I'm going Foreman pretty comfortably over Travis Homer, a few tiers above. Raheem Mostert or Latavius Murray? Big glee from YouTube. Appreciate you. Thanks so much for asking. Let me pull up the running back rankings here, and I have Latavius Murray at 21, and I have Raheem Mostert at 26. So Latavius Murray has been on average the running back 24 each over the last 3 weeks. He's handled 47 rush attempts during that time, and he's had 2 games where he's had 4 receptions. So in a game where you would expect the Denver Broncos to be falling behind and needing to catch up, Latavius Murray is going to be involved in the passing game, and Kansas City allows the most receptions to running backs. They allow nearly 7 receptions per game to the running back position. So that's very interesting to me. Now, I think Raheem Mostert has a much higher ceiling. Do not get me wrong. If you want ceiling, go Raheem Mostert. I think that Raheem Mostert has a higher ceiling, but my concern is that Jeff Wilson Jr. might just reclaim the lead role, and that Raheem Mostert doesn't get the volume that's necessary to hit in this smash matchup. The Chargers give up a ton of fantasy points to the running back position. We've seen that time and again. And this is a 42% run block advantage that the Miami Dolphins have over the LA Chargers. So yeah, this is a smash matchup. That's what I would consider. Yeah, the Chargers give up the second most fantasy points to the running back position in half PPR. So yeah, it's just a matter of who do we trust more, Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert. I don't think we have a lot of confidence in which one it is. So I think that Latavius Murray, he's not going to lose you the week. He's going to get 17 to 20 touches in this game, but it's a matter of the upside. And I think Mostert could be a complete zero. Latavius Murray is not going to be a zero. He's going to get you 8 to 12 fantasy points. Raheem Mostert, though, could be a zero. He could get you 15. And I'd rather take the pretty certain 12 than the possibility at a goose egg. So that's how I would lean here, a big Lee. It's just not enough upside that Mostert shows for me. So thanks for asking, though. I appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you're hitting that red subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Really appreciate y'all asking these questions. Thank you so much. If you haven't put your comments or questions in the chat, make sure you do. I'm answering them until we run out of questions or until I keel over. Okay. Let's keep her rolling. Chris Shoemaker. The Carolina rush defense sucks. I think Homer will get 17 points or more. Najee will get like 11.3. The Carolina defense does give up 22 fantasy points to the running back position. That is 8th best. So they do give up, like it's a plus matchup, but it's not like you're getting the Texans or you're getting the Seahawks or the Chargers, the Browns. Like it's not that level of elite matchup, but it is positive. So I get that. My concern, though, is that Travis Homer, his career high in looking at okay, I'll pull up Travis Homer. I don't think he's had double-digit carries in any game. Okay, I take that back. He had one game back in 2019 where he had 10 carries, but that is his career high. Outside of that one game in week 17, where like these games are meaningless, I'm looking through his game logs and I see the next highest is 6 rush attempts. 6 rush attempts. So I'm not confident that it's Travis Homer going to get 12 to 15 carries in this game. Will he get 10 carries? Maybe. Will he get 8 carries? Maybe. I think it's Tony Jones. I think it's Wayne Gallman, Godwin Igwebuike, who are also going to get sprinkled in with like 4 and 6 and 8 carries, blah, blah, blah. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Homer leads the team in carries, but I think it's the pass catching that's going to be really nice. So if Travis Homer falls in the end zone and Najee Harris does not, I think that's, how it could end up. But I think Najee Harris is just guaranteed more volume than Travis Homer. Mike Mars, dude, you're an oracle. Thanks. Appreciate you. I don't know how much of an oracle, but I do hit on some of them. I do hit on some of the takes. And, I'm in the top 42 out of over 200 rankers on Fantasy Pros, actually rankings contest. I was top 8 out of over 200 last week in wide receivers. I was top 5 in kickers. And top 5 in defensive players. So, we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well this year. I haven't hit on everything, but that's part of the gig. It's part of the gig. Sometimes you hit them, sometimes you don't. Mixon scored like 54 against Carolina before halftime. That is true. That is true. Yeah, I agree with you. Although Mixon is, he's much better than Travis Homer. Should I roll with Tyler Boyd or Darius Slayton? Wow. That's a new one. That is a new one. Right now, Tyler Boyd is my wide receiver 39. Darius Slayton is my wide receiver 34. And despite the tough matchup for Darius Slayton and the Giants secondary against the Philadelphia Eagles, Tyler Boyd, he has really struggled as of late. We're looking at Tyler Boyd with finishes of, over the last 3 games, wide receiver 53, wide receiver 86 against Tennessee's slot, which is usually torched, and then Kansas City, wide receiver 44. In fact, Tyler Boyd hasn't had a top 24 wide receiver week since week 7 against Atlanta, where he went 8 for 155 on 9 targets, had the touchdown. But Tyler Boyd only has had 2 top 24 weeks on the year, that Atlanta game, and then also when he went 4 for 105 on 5 targets and the touchdown against the Jets. So I'm going with Darius Slayton. I think he has a better chance of being a top 24 play this week, even against a tough secondary. Chris is saying, when Seattle put away Carolina, they'll run on the clock. Just saying. And if Homer hasn't had a huge game yet, the potential with game and carries away Homer over Najee. Plus, he plays Baltimore. I know the matchup against Baltimore is a tough one. I don't deny that. There is a significant offensive defensive line advantage. Let me pull it up here. Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers have a negative 30% run block advantage. And that Baltimore has been really stingy against running backs, but I think this is a volume play. And as I said, I'm just not sure that it's Travis Homer who's salting the game away. It could be Tony Jones. It could be Igwebuike. It could be Wayne Gallman. It could be someone else that they pull up off the practice squad that we haven't heard about yet. But I'm not convinced that it's going to be Travis Homer's role salting the game away. Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe you guys have more confidence than me in Travis Homer as this, bell cow back. I think that he's a really nice PPR play. I think that he's more of a third down, long down and distance type of running back. But, I think that there's just too many question marks with that Seattle backfield for me to have confidence in starting Najee Harris or starting Travis Homer over Najee Harris. So, could I be wrong? Yeah, I could. But if I'm a betting man, I'm still starting Najee Harris over Travis Homer. What's the best piece of advice you can share with anyone heading into the fantasy playoffs? I would offer 2 things. One, this is a weekly game. Don't get too caught up in 2 games away or the next game. The only exception is the championship week. You should be planning on the week you're going to play and the championship week. That's the first piece of advice. The second piece is you can drop the maybe he's a flex play wide receivers and instead pick up the clear-cut handcuffs. So a couple examples of this. One is you need to be dropping the likes of KJ Osborne, Devontae Parker, Julio Jones, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Devin Duvernay, Van Jeffersons, the Mac Hollins of the world. Drop those players in your 10 and 12 team leagues if you have short benches, and instead pick up the Jordan Masons of the world, the Jalen Warrens of the world, the Matt Breidas of the world. Okay, those are the types of the Justin Jacksons. Okay, they may be your league winning running backs. That's going to get you there. Okay, the Zamir Whites of the world. Pick those players up because they're either a 0 or they're going to hit like running back 2. That's how you want to play this, is what kind of handcuff upside can I beat my teammate or league mates to in the waiver wire, and I don't need to plan around it, because you're not going to be starting Mac Hollins with confidence unless it's a really deep league, right? So those are the two pieces of advice. Play 1 week at a time, except thinking about the championship game, and 2, pick up the handcuffs of the running back 1s and 2s of the world, so that if any of those players who may suffer an injury and not be active, you don't have to use fab that you don't have to pick them up. You're not going to be starting the Mac Hollins of the world. You're not going to be starting the Julio Jones of the world unless it's a really, really deep league. You're not going to be starting the Marvin Jones of the world or the Nick Westbrook-Ikhines. You're not going to do it. So that's what advice I would offer Mike Mars, those two pieces. Chris Schumacher, mine is Mike White plays Detroit in week 1 and Jacksonville in week 2 of the playoffs. Let's go, baby. Yeah, Mike White, aside from this, and this Bills game, I think is a little sneakier of a shootout than what we're giving credit for. So I have Mike White as like quarterback 14 or so in my rankings right now. I'm pretty happy with that ranking. Yeah, Mike White as quarterback 13, actually. As we get more clarity, I would be willing to move Trevor Lawrence over. So 13, 14 for Mike White. And then he gets Detroit and he gets Jacksonville. Green matchups. And then the New York Jets in week 17 get the Seattle Seahawks. Oh, also green matchup. So, yes, Mike White is a really nice quarterback to pick up for the fantasy playoffs if you've been streaming all year. All right, it looks like we just got a Shefty bomb. Trevor Lawrence is expected to play per Adam Schefter. So, it looks like he's going to play. I think that's fine. So, that's good. The other Shefty bomb that's dropped just now, Saquon Barkley, listed as questionable for Sunday due to a neck injury. He is legit 50-50 and wants to see how he feels Sunday in pregame warmups before deciding. So pick up Matt Breida and pick up Gary Brightwell. Those are the two players. I think Breida is going to get the majority of work, but Gary Brightwell as well is someone in your really deep leagues, like your 16 team leagues that you need a running back with a pulse. Gary Brightwell might be the running back that is not as highly sought. Okay, we got an update about Amari Cooper from Adam Schefter here. Amari Cooper listed as questionable Sunday for a hip injury. He is expected to play. So I was talking earlier about Amari Cooper, and I still don't have a lot of confidence against this tough Cincinnati secondary. Yeah, Amari Cooper is probably going to be a low-end wide receiver 2 for me. And this game is in Cincinnati. It's outside. So I'm still not firing up Amari Cooper if I can help it. Okay. Let's see. Any other Schefter bombs that are fantasy relevant? There's Joe Thuney, the guard, who's expected to play. Kadarius Toney will not play, but the expectation is that Kadarius Toney will be back next week, barring anything unforeseen. So Kadarius Toney might be an interesting. Go check your waiver wires. Go check your waiver wires right now and see if Kadarius Toney is there. Yes, he has been injured, but like he could be a week 16, week 17, very sneaky pickup. So go get Kadarius Toney if you got a deep bench, right? He's actually one of the few wide receivers that I would consider as a handcuff wide receiver. Like let's say Marcus Valdes-Scantling goes down. Let's say that Travis Kelce goes down. I think that's the play is a healthy Kadarius Toney commanded one of the highest target rates last year when he was on the Giants, and his talent is tremendous. He was wide receiver 1 in juke rate. He juked like 70% of the time. The reason why he gets injured so much is because he jukes himself. His body can't keep up with his mind. So I think Kadarius Toney is a pickup for your deep leagues. Could DJ Chark have a good game? Absolutely. I want to be bullish on DJ Chark, and I want to look at also like where am I versus consensus. Right now, I have DJ Chark as my wide receiver 32 and a half PPR. He is the consensus wide receiver 39. Over the last 2 games, DJ Chark either has a touchdown or 98 receiving yards, and against the Minnesota Vikings, who allow the most receiving yards to wide receivers. And this is the second highest over under in a dome. I think this is going to be a real smash matchup. DJ Chark, I want to fire him up as a wide receiver 3. I'm starting him over George Pickens. I started him over Mac Hollins. Like I would bench him, Mac Hollins compared to DJ Chark. I'm starting DJ Chark over Michael Gallup, over Donovan Peoples-Jones, over Tyler Boyd, over Deontay Johnson, over Devin Duvernay, over Josh Palmer, over Elijah Moore. That's where DJ Chark is for me. Rolling with the Greg D train. Yeah, we're going to roll with Greg Dulcich for sure at tight end. Greg Dulcich for me right now is the tight end 4 on the week. With Cortland Sutton out last week, Greg Dulcich was the tight end 4, 6 for 85 against Baltimore. And yes, he has a negative matchup against the linebacker Willie Gay. PFF projects it to be a negative 32% advantage, but you can't ignore the volume that Greg Dulcich is going to get. So Greg Dulcich, you're riding with him at tight end. He's a tight end 4 overall in my rankings this week. For my tight end rankings, I have Kelce, Andrews, Hockenson, Dulcich, Everett, Freiermuth, Schultz, Kittle, Henry, and then David Njoku I've moved up ahead of consensus. I think Njoku is 14th in consensus. I have moved him up to 11, but maybe I need to temper expectations. I don't know if Njoku is going to get full complement of snaps. Just something to consider there as we move forward. Also, if you want to take a deep cut, Evan Engram, also interesting given the defensive struggles to stay healthy that Tennessee has shown over the last few weeks. Harlan Kingfisher from YouTube, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for your question. I'll answer it in a second, but first, if you like the content or you're new and you haven't subscribed to the Best Bell Fantasy YouTube channel, make sure you do. Make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Really appreciate all your support. I've been on for almost 75 minutes answering all your questions, and as I said, I'm going to continue to be on until I answer all your questions or until I keel over and pass out and can't do it anymore. I am here for you. I'm here for the community. Harlan Kingfisher, you from YouTube, Rachaad White, Bam Knight, or James Cook in the flex. 2 leagues I secure the bye. If I win this week, I'll get the bye in both. And I am running with Rachaad White. I think he has the most guaranteed volume out of these running backs. I don't anticipate Leonard Fournette to play, but we are still waiting on the Schefter bomb, right? So Rachaad White, Bam Knight, or James Cook. Bam Knight over 100 total yards over the last 2 games. And James Cook, yeah, he had 20 touches, but Devin Singletary isn't going to go away. So I think Rachaad White, even in a tougher matchup, is guaranteed more pass catching volume, and that's what you want. Rachaad White, 17 targets over the last 2 games, and that was with Leonard Fournette available in last week's game against the New Orleans Saints. So give me Rachaad White over Bam Knight or James Cook in the flex, especially in full PPR. Jose from YouTube. First point PPR, 1 point PPR. Pick a running back and one for the flex: Pacheco, White, or Kirk. I'm pretty sure I have Rachaad White over Pacheco. So it's going to come down to Christian Kirk versus Isaiah Pacheco in the flex. Yeah, I have Rachaad White at 15 right now. I have Pacheco at 16. And then Kirk, I have at wide receiver 16 as well. If Zay Jones is still dealing with the injury, he has a questionable tag entering this game. Christian Kirk went 6 for 104 against Detroit last week, and then gets the Tennessee Titans, who give up the most wide receiver touchdowns and the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So you're firing up Christian Kirk. I think you're going to go with White and Kirk in this matchup. That's how I would go. Jose. So then technically I shouldn't feel bashful for dropping George Pickens for Matt Breida. Yes, I think so. I think that's actually a pretty smart move. Pick up Matt Breida, see what happens. The George Pickens of the world in wide receivers, like, they come a dime a dozen. Pick up Matt Breida. That's the philosophy that you want to take, Mike Mars. Absolutely. As we get into the playoffs, that's the type of strategy you need to make. Like, I don't think there's a scenario with how the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have given us enough data to say, we're not confident in how the offense is going to go. Like, Pickens has had 5 or 6 different games where he's finished as the wide receiver 25 or better. But he hasn't shown us elite ceiling. Deontay Johnson is still getting more targets, and this offense is pretty inept, even with Kenny Pickett there. Mitchell Trubisky wasn't looking much better. Like, there is a cap ceiling, and all you need is like one good week from Matt Breida. So yes, I'm picking up Matt Breida. Like, do I think Matt Breida is a phenomenal talent? Like, he's a speed running back who struggles to catch the ball from time to time. He's bounced around the league. We've seen some high upside games from Matt Breida, like when he was with the 49ers, or even last year, he had a nice game when he was with Buffalo. But all you need is one game from Matt Breida to get volume. And in fantasy football, volume is king, and you can get the most volume from running backs. And I think that Matt Breida is, if Saquon Barkley is out, I think Matt Breida very, very significantly over George Pickens, and you can drop Pickens. I mean, yeah, Pickens falls into that, like, the Darius Slaytons of the world. Like, I like Slayton, but like, Pickens needs to be moved behind Slayton for this week. And like the Michael Gallups of the world, you're not going to be super happy about you don't know what you're going to get from George Pickens. If you're starting Matt Breida, you're going to get volume from him. FS Guitar from YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you dropping into the chat and asking your question. Half PPR, start 3 of 4. Ooh, okay. Pierce, Singletary, James Cook, Jeff Wilson. Well, I'm going to pull up the rankings, and I'll give it to you based on the rankings. I'm nervous to bench Pierce, but I hate the Cowboys matchup. You and me both, FS Guitar. I would be benching Pierce in this matchup. I have Singletary at running back 24. I have Dameon Pierce at running back 29. I have James Cook at running back 27. And Jeff Wilson, I have running back 18. So right now I have Wilson and then Singletary. So those are the 2 that I would go with FS Guitar based on my rankings. Chris Schumacher, I picked up Homer to keep him from another team because they got no other backs and have the Green Bay running backs. I play the loser of his game schedule next week in the playoffs, favor me heavily against him. Let's go, Chris. Let's go. High level strategy right there. I hope Homer gets the majority of carries. You think I should pick up the other Seattle running back? I saw that guy had 7 carries last week. Tony Jones. I mean, we can talk about Tony Jones if you really want. It's not going to be, a delightful conversation, but if you want to, we can talk Tony Jones. Tony Jones last year had 2 different games where he had double-digit carries. Week 1 against Green Bay, 11 of 50, so 4.5 yards a carry. But then week 12 against Buffalo, he went 16 for 27, 1.7 yards per carry. Yeah. It's ugly. So in the 2 games where Tony Jones had double-digit carries, he averaged 13.5 carries, and he averaged like 38, 39 yards per game. That's not really great. So yeah, I'm not viewing Tony Jones as an upside type of play. Do you think Tucker will get more than 4 points he got last week? Well, I can talk kickers. Sure. As a top five kicker ranker from last week, Justin Tucker is my kicker 5 this week at Pittsburgh, for what it's worth. So I have Brett Maher, Evan McPherson, Cameron Dicker, and Tyler Bass ahead of him. I think ESPN just has Homer with more points because they use him in the pass game. Yep, they do. Travis Homer has been used very much in the pass game. Also want to appreciate the info. It's so insightful, well put together. Thank you, QQ. Appreciate you. Testimonies right here. Thanks. I really do appreciate it. Like y'all as a community keep me going, and I appreciate all of you tuning in, chatting with each other, being supportive. It's been a lot of fun. B growing stuff. PPR pick 2. Juju, Chark, Homer. Thanks. Well, we got word that Travis Homer is probably going to be, the majority ball touch running back in the backfield. I'm not saying that he's going to be the lead ball carrier. I don't know, but he's going to probably touch the ball the most out of the running backs there. DJ Chark and Juju, I think, just have more inherent upside. Like Juju Smith-Schuster right now is my wide receiver 26. He's the consensus wide receiver 24. So I am lower than consensus on Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju has finished as the wide receiver 58 or worse each of the last 3 games. But I'm projecting that he's better that he's better, we saw him before the concussion have a really nice streak of games where he finishes the wide receiver 7, 4, and 15 before getting knocked out of the Jacksonville game. So maybe he reclaims that against Denver, and then Denver is really stingy against outside wide receivers, but they've got the best coverage grade and they allow the fewest receiving yards to wide receivers. I would probably go with DJ Chark here due to the upside. Even though I have Juju ranked higher, I think in my consensus rank or my accuracy rankings, there's a difference between accuracy and upside. And I think DJ Chark has more upside than Juju Smith-Schuster in this matchup. So if I'm picking 2, I think I'm going to go Chark. And I think, I'm going to go Travis Homer as well, given the PPR nature of it. So let's go Chark and Homer and fade Juju this week. Okay, I'm hoping the Jeff Wilson Jr. versus 49ers performance was a fluke. I'm hoping so too. If Barkley's out, do I go Zonovan Knight, Homer, or Najee? Full PPR for my other league. Let's get to it. My rankings are mostly in half PPR. Let me see if they translate over. Let me go to the Fantasy Pros, see if they do a good job translating over. In full PPR, Zonovan Knight is my running back 27. Homer is my running back 23. And Najee Harris is my running back 19. So I'd still go with Najee Harris in full PPR, but it's a lot closer for that Homer-Najee split. And Zonovan Knight, I think there's going to be some split, but I do think Zonovan Knight deserves to be put into your starting lineups in most leagues as like a flex play. I think he's going to get majority of work. Like, will Michael Carter be like a 30-35% type of guy? Yeah, and I think 50% could go to Zonovan Knight and then 15% for like Ty Johnson, but that's just a rough estimation. Isaiah Pacheco over Travis Homer? I think so. Yeah, I think I'm starting Pacheco over as Travis Homer. All right. Mike Mars, next time. Good luck, Mike. Start 2, Travis Homer, James Cook, or George Pickens. Yeah, I think we're going to go with James Cook for right now and Travis Homer. Those are my 2. We can bench George Pickens. I'm worried about Eagles players in championship week in fantasy. I mean, we'll see. We will see how it goes. Maybe there are some upsets along the way that force the Eagles to be a little bit more competitive. But we have seen the Eagles not step on the gas in the second half of games when they've been in control. So I would be a little bit worried too. We're going to have to read the tea leaves and see how it goes from there, Chris. I agree with you. If you're new to the channel, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button if you like the content, and drop your chat questions into the comments, the comment section here. I try to answer as many as I can, as much as I can. We've been going for an hour and 25 minutes. Appreciate all of you as we get ready for week 14. This has been a lot of fun. Ryan N. from YouTube. You also been DMing me. You can DM me, follow me on Twitter at FFStalder, just like Ryan N has. And Ryan asks, should we go Breida or Rachaad White? I think it's Rachaad White. I don't think we get too cute. It could be Gary Brightwell who gets a lot of run. It could be Matt Breida, but Rachaad White, it's clear that Rachaad White has the better role. Then it's clearer that Rachaad White has a good role. And if Leonard Fournette is out, there is no way that you're going to be benching Rachaad White. Okay, so Rachaad White, very clearly a mid-pack running back 2 for me this week. Cesar Marquez, thanks, bro. Appreciate all y'all. I'm talking about the Eagles only having 1 loss and players not even playing or only playing first half. I mean, it's possible. That is a legitimate concern. It is something that we're going to have to monitor because the Eagles have been intentional in their game plans. They've been intentional about their game scripts, and we've seen the influence of how game script has affected the push that the Eagles have had. The Eagles score some of the most points in the first half of games, and they really don't push the pace at all in the second half of games where they've been leading by a lot. So I get that, and we've seen them adjust game to game for their opponents. So it would not surprise me at all if Nick Sirianni and the rest of the Eagles coaches, are adjusting that way. All right, everyone. I think I've answered all of your questions. If you got some last minute Hail Mary questions, throw them in the chat. I will answer them. I'll take a moment and just say, I appreciate all of you tuning in. This is a lot of fun. I like doing these live streams, answering your questions. In the off season, I'll be doing a lot of draft content, rookie content, free agent content. I'm going to look and see what's going to be the best way to optimize for the YouTube channel, whether that is having a regular update of a player videos, or if you guys want to talk draft strategy, or if you want to see some live drafts, I'll do some drafters live drafts or DraftKings or FFPC drafts. I'll do those in the off season. And then of course, if Underdog comes back to Michigan, I'll be doing some Underdog drafts. I appreciate all y'all jumping in and giving some feedback too, because I love doing these, answering your questions. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel so that you can get all the up-to-date info on what I'm going to be doing. And of course, I'll be doing player profiles in the off season, players that I'm higher or lower on. I'll also be doing some draft studies. Like this past year, I put out a study of the players that I was avoiding in each round of your best ball drafts. And 9 of those 10 players hit as busts, or players that you should have avoided, or that it worked out that the players did not hit for you. So that's what, 9 of the first, not 1 player per round for the first 10 rounds, 9 of those 10 players. And Jose can attest to it. But the rest of y'all, if you want to check out my YouTube channel, let me see if I can find that video too, and I'll drop it in the chat. But let me see. Yeah, because I think it was a live way back when. I think it was, best ball avoids. This was back 6 months ago. So let me see if I can get this shared with y'all just for reference, because I was still figuring it out back in the day. But if you want to check out this video, this was a voids for the first 10 rounds. Some were injury based, some were usage based. But as you could tell, like there were some real big hits. And if you drafted those players, they were good to avoid. Okay. A Game Grizzo with some questions. Who do you like more this week out of Chark, Palmer, Zay Jones, or DPJ? I'm debating Palmer since I have Everett already. I like DJ Chark out of those. I think the upside is there for Chark. Could he be a 0? Sure. But I also think that this game could turn into an absolute slugfest. You know that Jared Goff is throwing the ball down the field pretty well. The Minnesota defense gives up a lot of receiving yards to wide receivers. They give up 280 receiving yards on average to the wide receiver position. You know, some of that's going to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, but DJ Chark has been, the number 2 wide receiver in the last couple of games, working his way back from injury. So I like Chark's upside in this matchup. Josh Palmer could be interesting. That's also a high upside game script that could happen. But if I'm picking out of these players, I think it's DJ Chark. Zay Jones is still questionable. I do like Zay Jones's matchup, but it's not as high of an over-under game total. And DPJ, I don't have a lot of confidence in, in this Cincinnati secondary. Amari Cooper is expected to play. I'd probably be a little bit more interested in DPJ if Amari Cooper was out, but instead, I think I'm going to go with DJ Chark. Will Caleb Williams declare for the draft? I thought that Caleb Williams, I thought he is a draft eligible 2024 quarterback. So will he declare then? Yeah, but he's only a sophomore. So I think that he still has one more year. Maybe I'm mistaken. Y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Like, I'm wrong about things all the time. I don't take it personally, but I think that Caleb Williams isn't going to declare until 2024. Even though he won the Heisman this year. QQ, I have Kittle, but picked up Bellinger. Wanted to pick up a premium handcuff. Is Bellinger worth dropping? I think so. Which premium handcuff would I recommend? I mentioned a few of these earlier, but I can just rerun through them just for you, QQ. Just for you. Okay. Some of the handcuffs to consider. Jaylen Warren. These are high upside handcuffs. Jaylen Warren, Jordan Mason, Chuba Hubbard. Let's see. Another one would be Matt Breida, of course. Justin Jackson, I mentioned. Isaiah Spiller has the same type of profile as Austin Eckler. And Isaiah Spiller, over the last few weeks, has gotten involved. I mean, week 9 against Atlanta, he had 7 carries. Week 10, he had 4 carries. Week 11, he had 4 carries and 2 receptions. Week 12 against Arizona, he had 2 carries and 1 reception. So he's been sprinkled in here and there, Isaiah Spiller, but he could fit into that Austin Eckler role if Eckler goes down. Tyrion Davis-Price might be interesting. Zamir White might be interesting, QQ. So just throwing that out there. If he does, will he be a Houston Texan? I think the Houston Texans are going to take a quarterback this year. I don't think they're going to take Caleb Williams unless they find out that their quarterback is a complete bust. Like the Cardinals pivoted very quickly off of Josh Rosen after year 1. They knew what they had, and then they were like, we're good off of Josh Rosen. Okay. I like that pick this week. Appreciate it. Yeah, DJ Chark. Awesome. Chris Schumacher, you're right. He's a sophomore. Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to double check that. Millie C, pick 3, Najee Harris, Pierce, Jeff Wilson, Homer, DPJ. Oh, man. Woo, we keep hitting on these Najee Harris, Pierce, Jeff Wilson. I have Jeff Wilson ranked the highest out of the running backs. And then I have Pierce 1 spot ahead of Pierce 1 spot ahead of Homer. But I think I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson, Najee Harris in those from Millie's question from YouTube. All right. I think we've reached the end, everyone. I appreciate all of you jumping in, asking your questions. Make sure you hit that red subscribe button right there on the YouTube channel. If there are more questions, start sit, make sure to hop in the comments of my videos, ask the questions there, and I will more than willing to answer your questions. Happy to do it. And until next time, good luck with your week 14. Good luck in the fantasy football streets, everybody.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.